All right, everybody, welcome back. It's Cherry Picking. Today's video, we're going to be looking at the top free agents in this year's market, the UFAs, the RFAs, kind of breaking down what we think their contracts are going to look like and what teams they're going to be going to. Let's get right into it. We're going to start with probably the most prized possession, especially in Toronto, Mitch Marner.
Yeah, I think Mitch Marner's going to go to LA, and I think it's going to be like around $13 million.
$13 million, yeah. See, everyone's like, I don't see how it could happen because of who they have, but I really think Marner's going to go to Vegas. To be honest, the odds right now do indicate that. They'd have to move some pieces. I feel like Petro might get moved out of Vegas
Well, they
this year.
talked about that already, so I think that's going to have to happen, and it just makes sense for both parties there. So
I could see that, but if he goes to Vegas with no state tax, and I think the Marner short-term deal thing, from what I've heard, is kind of bullshit. I think people are just saying that because they think he's selfish from the Toronto days. Like, it's all the Toronto media that are pushing the short-term deal. I think he's going to sign a 7 to 8 year deal in Vegas for $12.5 million.
Johnny T comes up because he was brought up. Apparently, they're far off. The Leafs offered 4. I think you still take him at 7, to be honest with you. But I think my deal, 3 years, $6 million.
3 years, $6 million. I think we just see him do like a longer deal with shorter term, like 4 to 5 years, $5 million, let's say. I know that's kind of where they were originally. I think the whole Brock Nelson deal, 3 years, $7.5 million. Tavares is like, wait a second, I think I deserve a little bit more.
Wait, no shit.
Yeah. Toronto, though, it seems like the option, but hopefully they don't miss out on him.
No, it'd suck if they do.
Because then they'd have a big 2C problem.
Yes, well, and then you look at, are you going to put Granlund in that situation? Because we're looking at him sitting right here. I mean, you could, but he's 33 and is not the same player. Yeah,
I don't think Granlund's going to be coming to Toronto. I think you could see him at about 5.5. So I think that's what his value is going to be. But like, I just seem like all the Finns and stuff gravitate towards each other. I feel like he can end up in Carolina.
Oh, for sure. And they have the ability to spend the money. So it could make sense for
And
that.
so I think could Ehlers as well.
Yeah,
I think Ehlers in Carolina makes a lot of sense.
Without a fucking doubt in my mind, if there was a market available, I'd be betting on it.
So how much do you think he's going to make though?
That's an even tougher question than the Marner one. Do you think it's near 10?
I think it's under 10, but I think it's not far. Like I think 9 and his term. This is looking at a pretty big contract at 29 years old.
Yeah.
I'd say at least 6 or 7 years, right?
A quick one. Patrick Kane, I think, is going to be a Leaf. I think he's going to do a discount in Toronto but Toronto has to fill pieces because if John Tavares leaves and Brad can't shift things, that's a very desirable 59 points, which is probably going to look more like 50 next season.
Yeah, I think he's just going to stay in Detroit, if I'm being totally honest.
Is Detroit going to make the playoffs next year?
I think they could. They were close this year, and they're going to get better.
Brad Marchand, I know there was rumors. I don't know how much I fucking believe any of it because he's a party boy right now about going to Toronto. If I'm Toronto, I would take him still at around 6.
Sick. I see. I think Brad Marchand is going to be the biggest overpay of the offseason. And look, don't get me wrong. He kind of deserves it. He had an unreal playoff run, but he's fucking 37. Like, to be honest, if the Leafs overpay for him and pay him $7 million, $6.5 million, then they're just as stupid as I thought they were.
I just think they need the leadership more than anything. I think it's a tone thing. There's just very few guys.
Then go get Patrick Kane for $2 million or a guy like that.
Oh, I think you need more than that. I think you need like 3 of them. I think it's a bulk issue.
Yeah,
I think you look at it as that's why I wanted Taves. You put Taves, Kane, and Brad Marchand on the same team, and they will tell guys to just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think that's the issue in Toronto is guys won't just go, shut the fuck up, you crybaby bitch.
Well, now that Marner's gone, maybe it changes things. Maybe Matthews and Marner can't really do like the whole.
Sam Bennett, he's staying in Florida.
Yeah, I know. Unless somebody like blows him out of the water with a deal, with an
Anaheim.
offer, like an $11 million deal. Other than that, he's staying in Florida for 8.5. He could
go to Anaheim and join his buddy, Gudas.
Anaheim
can spend. They have the ability to do it. Claude Giroux is another interesting player sitting here who I hope goes back to Ottawa because even though I hate Ottawa, it'd be nice to see them actually succeed with the players they have there because they clearly give a shit.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think Giroux fits well, and I think he could be there. Last couple guys we'll talk about here for UFAs. Besser, I think he's going to be an Islander right alongside Horvat.
100%.
Jamie Benn re-signing. So this is the deal I think will be interesting for what Tavares signs for.
Oh, this will be a huge discount.
He's going to stay in Dallas for 3 to 4 years and sign at like $3 million.
No, without a doubt.
$2.5 million.
Oh, probably that. Yeah, and he's made bank.
Yeah, he's made a shit ton of money. So
RFAs though is the next conversation that has to happen. Yeah, because it's a very unique market this year where it's who's going to try and fuck over Toronto with Matthew Nyes?
Yeah, I don't think anyone will because I know that for one like, okay, so perfect example is that offer sheet that Edmonton got. I listened to Spittin' Chicklets, and the reporter was talking about how they heard about the offer sheet being like it was gonna be a thing in like November of that year. I feel like we would already have heard of like someone building an offer here for Matthew Nyes. I think Nyes is gonna re-sign in Toronto for like $9 million.
If you do make that for $9 million. See, I don't think they're going to sign him at $9. I think that's part of the problem. But no one else can try and make the giant offer to go anything in this range because it's such a liability to lose your first, second, and third. I do think somebody might try and screw with Toronto a little bit right on the dot at 7, but there's only a select group of teams that can do it. Matthew Nyes, one of the greatest contract years we've ever seen a player really have.
He was especially in the playoffs. Like you talk about a performer, a guy who needs to step up for like maybe the players who weren't necessarily playing to their peak. I think Nyes. I do think Nyes is going to sign for $9 million so that Toronto sets the tone and being like, yeah, we don't want anybody else to fucking touch this guy.
I'm hoping 8, but I'll deal with that. Bouchard, is it supposed to be an insane deal?
So it's either 8 years, $11 million, or there's one like bridge year where he signs a 1-year deal. I heard Chris Johnson say that a 1-year deal for whatever, same probably about $10 to $11 million, and then it goes to arbitration or there's a deal later on. Yeah. I wouldn't pay Evan Bouchard $11 million a year for 8 straight years. I couldn't. Even though like he does deserve it in terms of his points, but he makes so many fucking boneheaded mistakes. I wouldn't be able to do it.
And you have a big contract coming up in Edmonton where they can't necessarily assign a lot of money without knowing how they're going to deal with that situation.
Yeah, that situation is going to be sticky.
Peterka, very interesting.
So Peterka is really interesting because I've heard that, Buffalo was trying to trade him. Buffalo hasn't necessarily they haven't tried to trade these young, good players that they had. Most of the time, it's the opposite. Most of the time, those guys want to get out. So I think that's sort of a red flag of them being like, Peterka maybe isn't the best teammate, maybe isn't the best fit. Because now they're even saying like, they're only going to accept a really big offer for him. But I think it's just pondering at this point.
Morgan Geekie with Boston is a very unique situation. Does he want to return to a team that's maybe doing a rebuild?
I think he fits well there. You know, he still played with Pasternak. I think the Bruins will re-sign him. Looking at other guys on this list, Marco Rossi's a really interesting one. I don't think he's going to re-sign in Minnesota. I think he will definitely get traded or offer sheeted. I've heard Buffalo's in the mix for that. Maybe we see a Marco Rossi Peterka swap.
The swap would make the most sense because you don't want to, like, depending on the contract you're offering a guy, like this gets very dicey and is a instant you're going to lose your job as a GM situation.
Interesting.
Because if you fuck it up, you're done.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no fixing it.
Well, see, the thing is, though, I don't know how many RFAs are going to be worth that much. Like, Marco Rossi won't be worth that much, in my opinion. I think he's in that range, or even the $9 million range. Like, he's an unbelievable player, and I think he's not really the style that John Hines in Minnesota, I think, wants to build there in terms of, like, toughness. Like, he's a little bit smaller. He did really, I saw a report he really didn't like that he got moved down to fourth line center for a bit, but it seems like that relationship is kind of broken.
And they have a lot of money in Anaheim to re-sign Mason McTavish.
He will be back, especially Zegras just got traded, right? Yeah. Like Mason McTavish, will certainly be back. Voronkov is also an interesting one on Columbus because he had an unbelievable year this year and at the end of last year as well, with the other kind of like that Russian trio that they have with Chinakhov and Marchenko as well. So Voronkov probably gets signed for, about what they see there on the screen, $4 to $5.5 million.
Very interesting. You scroll through the rest of these guys as we try and wrap up today. There's a lot of players, like the Rangers have some RFAs to deal with. Nick Robertson is not going to be a Leaf. No. That's over. All know that.
Let's just be honest here. Yeah. He's not going to be a Leaf. Cody Glass will not be a Devil.
No.
I've heard Tomasino will be a Penguin. I've heard that Malkin is very excited to play with him in his last year with Pittsburgh this year.
Yeah, last year at Pittsburgh, and that will be a very interesting way how that all plays out. He does not seem like a spiteful player necessarily, but it seems like a lot of wasted time for these Pittsburgh Penguin veterans when there obviously isn't a lot in the market for Pittsburgh to be able to try and just be competitive.
Exactly. It's rebuild or nothing at this point, right? Like, do you think there's any chance Sidney Crosby gets traded from Pittsburgh?
I think it's if he decides.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's the only way.
Yeah, because it's not like Dubas can be like, no, we're holding you here because we have such a good relationship. Like, if it was different, if it was like originally the same GM that he grew up with or coach that he was with in Pittsburgh forever.
And part of the thing made me wonder, Lemieux and them trying to potentially buy back shares from the guy that owns Liverpool and the Red Sox, made me wonder if they're not happy with how things are being ran and they want to make a change. Because maybe Sid isn't complaining because him and Mario had a conversation.
Maybe.
That seemed the most likely scenario for me. And I mean, I can't remember who hired Dubas specifically, but I'm pretty sure it was the Fenway guys.
Yeah, it was the Fenway guys.
So then there you go. Maybe that's the change.
2 years from now, Crosby, McDavid, McKenna. Imagine that down Pittsburgh's front line. Hey, Penguins fans, it's not going to happen, but maybe. That's it. That's all the free agents that you pretty much want to pay attention to, I want to say, for the entire summer. If you're paying attention to guys other than that, you just love hockey. And we can break those guys down as well. Just let us know in the comments. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.